Rule number one, don't open the door.
I need a little more up top and a little less down below.
Amber alert. Oh God, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. In orbit of Uranus.
It smells.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh no, you love me. You know you love me.
Just don't let it touch the
You know, that's great, but give me a little more.
Why are you shooting at me?
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that often lift and separate them from the average genre fare. Are you new to us? Well, we would like to welcome you. David and I are old friends. We've been discussing movies our entire lives, and now we do it en masse to the public.
Yeah.
And this is not a rehearsed podcast. It is very impromptu. We do not have scripts. We watch the movies shortly before we discuss them. And you can find out about that if you either go to our Facebook page on Thursdays, or if you want to go to our Patreon page and subscribe, and we will send you the whole list in advance for an entire season. If you're returning, you already know all this and our special mojo, and we're glad you're back with us too. I'm here with my co-host and friend, David Horton. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Excellent open that time. Look at you doing so good there
pro.
with
what
that.
Can I say?
Yeah, what can you say? What can you say?
Nothing. You could say
No, it was really good. I liked it, and it covered everything. And normally we start with our genre week. What have we done in our respective genre? I actually jumped over to your genre this past week.
Sometimes my goodness,
I do that. I watched a movie recommended by me because I asked a friend of mine, "What was your favorite horror movie?" She said, House LLC.
Oh no!
Have you ever watched this?
I have. It's found footage.
But I liked the way the found footage was done because of the different perspectives. It was almost like you were watching a documentary about what happened, and then they had found the found footage, so they're commenting on the found footage. So that kind of worked for me in a way.
Okay.
I also liked the fact that they kept the full mystery until near the last 10 freaking minutes kind of thing, which didn't bother me that bad, just because I liked the way they cut the characters. Basically, if you haven't watched it, go watch it, because we're going to spoil the heck out of everything we talk about. But House LLC came out in I think 2015.
Yeah, it's been almost 10 years, I think.
It's basically the found footage of a news crew, also a documentary about that news crew based on found footage of the opening night of a haunted house where there were multiple deaths and injuries, like 15 people died during this opening night, and the town covered it up. And basically all but one of the people involved in the haunted house died in the tragedy. So there's only one supposed witness, and she's been, hidden, gone, whatever, for, the few years before this happened, or since this happened. I liked some of the scares in it because they weren't traditional. I liked this whole kind of, something's behind me and scares me, and then I have to run down the hall to get the guys going, come back here, and it's not there anymore, and now it's moved somewhere else, that sort of thing.
It seems like they're always going either in a hall or a basement. It seems like I remember that.
Correct. Well, the big scare is in the basement. They have a girl who is just in her underwear chained to a wall, and there are 3 clowns staring at her, and they think that's going to be the clown, that mannequins.
That's
And
why it scared you. Clowns.
they think that's going to be the big, because one of the clowns starts moving is the thing. And so like the guy is just doing his little thing, blah, 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 blah. I'm going around, da, da, da. Oh, there's a clown in the hallway. Man, who put the mannequin here? That is freaky. Guys, why did you do that? And he turns back around and the mannequin's not there.
Right.
And it's like,
I remember it now. And I still was not a big fan, but it's mainly because of the shaky camera shit.
Yeah. That style, neither one of us is really a fan of. I thought this was one of the better ones to do that. But the one scene I've got to say that got me, and found footage is the only way to do this, is because they create this angle where the camera's here and the guy is asleep in the bed and he keeps like waking up and looking at the camera and talking to you, but you can see behind him. You can see all the way back behind him to the doorway and the hallway and everything else. And they do one kind of precursor scene where he's there and he's doing that, and you see a shadow standing in the hallway, right? And as he like picks the camera up and moves it and turns it around so you can see, it's not there. Nobody's in the hallway. Yeah. And so he puts it back down and keeps talking, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the scene that got me though was later on, and he's waking up and he's talking, and you see it there and everything else, and he turns around and sees it and grabs the camera and goes and looks, and now suddenly she's sitting against the wall and she has like big white eyes and everything else, and he takes the blanket and puts it over the camera, right? And now it's just underneath the camera, and you're going, okay, don't pull that camera, don't, just cut, do not pull the blanket, do not pull the sheet, please do not pull the sheet. And he finally pulls the sheet away, and she's of course right there, and he pulls it back and it goes to black, and then he's comatose for the next day or two.
Why would you put a blanket over the camera?
No, he's holding the camera, it's like he's holding the camera, and he pulls the blanket over himself.
Okay,
still holding the camera. And so, but it goes to that old thing I've always said, which is, there are certain things that get me and scare me. One is spiders who aren't normal size. Like, I don't mind baby spiders, black widows, blah, blah, blah. But a spider that's like the size of a chihuahua or bigger, I don't like giant spiders. They just get to me. And anytime anybody covers up their face to avoid a horror, you can't do that. You can't put a mask on. You can't cover your hands like this. You can't put a blanket over your head. It's not going to save the thing from eating you. So,
and clowns and curtains that are closed.
I don't like. No, shower curtains. Shower curtains must stay open. Why would you close it? Anybody can be behind it. This is ridiculous. Makes no sense to close a shower curtain. Anyway. So I watched House LLC. It was pretty good. And it did have a couple of good scares in that for me. So
I watched it because somebody, and it was a long time ago, but somebody else said, yeah, it's one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. I watched it. I was like, this is not the best horror movie I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, it's up there with me with, what did we watch? Not Wreck. What did we watch this year that was found footage that was good?
Paranormal Activity.
No, that's a terrible. We don't like that movie.
No, we don't like it, but we like. No,
Wreck. The one with the one. Was it Wreck?
Yeah, Wreck's the one in the apartment building with the zombies.
Yeah. That's
a good movie.
That's a really good movie, and that's all found footage.
It is, but it doesn't have those tricks you're talking about. It just has scary shit happening.
Yeah, right in front of your camera lens.
Yeah, they're not covering your eyes at all.
I was scared. Did you do anything fun?
I did something somewhat scary. I watched a movie that I've talked about before in like Coming to Get You. I finally got around to watching Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that.
I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. It's billed as a horror comedy, but it's not really a comedy. It's got some comedic actors in it, including Pete Davidson, but it's really more of a horror mystery. Think like Agatha Christie crossed with a modern day slasher film. It's all set in one house. People are dying, and you don't know who's doing it. And all of a sudden, suspicion just bounces from person to person to person.
Okay.
So that's the cool aspect to me of this movie. It came out last year. It's directed by Helena Regine. I don't know who she hasn't really done much. Written by some people I've not heard of either, so I don't even mention them. But the stars are Amanda Stenberg. You probably don't recognize the name, but she was Rue in the Hunger Games.
Oh, okay.
The little girl that, yes. She's great in this. Pete Davidson is good too. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give too much away about it. And then Lee Pace is in it as well. He played Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
He is the only of the actors in this crew that is older. So it's kind of odd that he's there. And so there's a red herring there as well.
Okay.
He's actually dating one of the young girls. I don't recognize anyone else in this movie, but the cast is predominantly fresh female faces, and they are all really good. So we'll leave it at that. The synopsis is when a group of 20-somethings get stuck in a remote mansion during a hurricane, a party game goes very, very wrong and ends up with a dead body on the ground and fake friends at every turn as they try to find out the killer among them. And I want to tell you, this movie has an ending that completely blew me away. I was like not expecting it at all. So I highly recommend it. It scores 86 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's solid. I enjoyed it. Go check it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I did a haunted house, found footage horror, and you did a scary house, bunch of people mystery comedy.
Yeah, no segues here at all. Sorry about that.
Well, I got a segue. Oh, I got one. So mine was from a friend of mine who recommended it to me, said it was a really good movie. You said you originally watched that movie because someone had said it was a good recommendation from you. We are today doing a Johnny Has the Keys first. We are doing our first ever listener request. So it's not like we don't read your comments or respond to your emails or follow you on social media when you follow us, kind of thing. We do that and we listen, and we have our first ever listener request show. So we had a friend of ours from back in the day, as 'twere, who listens to us. He's now living in North Carolina. His name is Mr. Tim Funk. Look him up and harass him on every social media outlet you can. No, just kidding. Tim supports the show and he listens to the show, and he said, hey, why don't you guys do Mars Attacks? Mars Attacks is, for those of you who haven't seen it, before we even get into it or say another word, if you haven't seen it, go watch it because we do have spoilers. This is by no means a spoiler-free podcast in any way. And we will be talking about it and several things else.
Do not run. We are your friends.
Came out in 1996, directed by Tim Burton. It was written by three guys: Lynn Brown, Woody Gilman, and Wally Wood. We'll end up talking about them. Has an all-star studded cast. This is, I'll just start off with a key. This is the mad world of science fiction genre comedy.
I have a key very similar, but I'll do it when we get there. Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. It has I don't want to go into the stars. We'll go into it when Tim does his casting and all that, but everybody from, Jack Nicholson to Tom frickin' Jones, for God's sake, Jack Black, Pam Grier. I mean, everybody in this movie that speaks is a name, that you've seen before or heard of or something. This is from the master himself, as to some people, Mr. Tim Burton. Had you seen this movie before?
I saw this movie back when it came out on video or DVD, I guess it would have been in the 90s. Yeah. Actually, no, it was probably video. I can't remember. But yeah, that was the last time I'd seen it. I had not. This is my first revisit to it. 30 years later, almost.
Me too, the same way. This was my first time watching it after it initially had come out on DVD. I did not see it in the theater. I saw it when it was released with that. And so this is my first revisit to it. Did you like it? Do you enjoy it? Do you love it? Do you think it's great? What?
It's very hard to pinpoint this movie. I was like, why didn't I revisit it? It didn't leave a big mark on me. But when I watched it again, knowing Burton and knowing Elfman, who I think is very important in this movie, because I love the music in this movie, I enjoy it. I enjoy it immensely because of all the components, but I don't enjoy it as like classic cinema. I just enjoy it. What I wrote down in my thoughts is that it's more sensationalism than substance. And that includes the fact that it's a giant cast of well-known faces, and that it might have been more effective had they not been well-known actors as far as a science fiction movie. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
I laugh at it. It makes me laugh. There are funny parts in this movie.
I do think there are good gags in this movie. I do think there are some unique special effects in this movie, which are interesting and cool. I think there are some great performances, so to speak, as far as what they're doing. But this to me was like an homage to 40s comedies. This was a chance where I felt like I was watching actors have fun doing a movie rather than get into any kind of characters whatsoever.
Right.
So I never thought that Pierce Brosnan was playing a scientist. I thought he was playing Pierce Brosnan shooting for a week and having fun. You know what I mean? Same thing with Nicholson.
Like doing a movie in the Bahamas so you could go on vacation.
Right. Homage to Harryhausen there.
When you say an homage to 40s comedies, I think it's more of an homage to 50s sci-fi.
It is both. That's why I find it really difficult to categorize this movie. I find it hard because ultimately I liked it. I liked the movie, but I couldn't really. It's hard for me to analyze what I liked about it or why I liked that. Like, it makes no sense to have a freaking chihuahua with a human head on it, but I liked that scene and thought it's
hilarious.
Interesting, So it's this.
I think what it is that there's not really a strong story to this movie. But
it's a series of scenes.
Right. It's a series of scenes. And Tim Burton was like, he knew that. So he was like, how can I sprinkle extras on left and right to entertain people? It could be Jack Nicholson playing two characters, or it could be really great special effects, or it could be Martians saying funny things like, "Do not run, we are your friends." Right. That line I did remember over 30 years. I've always loved that line. "Do not run, we are your friends."
Well, and I think it's instinctively, Burton doing, we covered Sleepy Hollow, and that was his kind of homage to Gothic and to Hammer. Kind of thing. This is definitely an homage to 50s sci-fi, but with this undercurrent of a big scale comedy of the 40s where it's not really the scene, the storyline that works. It's just my scene. My scene is freaking funny, in this movie. And he sets it up from the beginning of the guy going, "You got a barbecue happening, blah, blah." And then all of a sudden this herd of cows comes over the hill on fire. And you're going, what is going on?
I know. It's really gruesome when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But so is everything the aliens do. I mean, even, tearing the cheek off the one and everything and all that.
And honestly, he was going to do a whole lot more because of the cards this movie is based on. And the censors said, "No, you can't do this." So that's why we had the effect of the skeletons when they get shot. But they were going to be like obliterating people and pulling limbs off and things that they just decided was too much, if that makes sense.
Well, a brief synopsis, and I'll just take it directly from IMDb. This one is, it's a normal day for everyone until the president of the United States, James Dale, announces Martians have been spotted circling Earth. The Martians land and a meeting is arranged, but no, not everything goes to plan. The Martians seem to have other plans for Earth. Are they just misunderstood beings, or do they really want to destroy all of humanity? And that's the story. It's about how they all try to survive, really, until one old lady has a crooning, what do you call that kind of music? The yodeling.
Oh, it's
music?
Slim Whitman, and he was known, I think, to yodel. That is the strangest song. I had forgot about that.
And that's the Earth's defense weapon, other than
it's like stumbled upon accidentally. Yeah.
It, rather than microbes, which kill the Martians in War of the Worlds, it's Slim Whitman kills them in this. Yeah.
Oh, and it's hilarious too, because the way they die is the same way they're killing everybody else. They explode.
Yeah, their heads pop. Yeah.
Do you have any production on this movie? I mean, the only thing I know is that we did Sleepy Hollow last week, and Sleepy Hollow was done after this film, but these films were directed not back to back, but he did this one, and then Sleepy Hollow was his next film. So yeah, it's kind of cool that we're covering, they're like bookends for our little break before Thanksgiving or what have you. Yeah. Yeah. Thanksgiving.
And I think it was his variation of being able to give the studio what it wanted, sort of thing in this kind of, but with his own twist on it so that he could go do what he wanted with Sleepy Hollow. I do think Sleepy Hollow is a much better film than this.
But I think you're right. It's like he was doing homages, two in a row, one to sci-fi and one to horror. Because he's not really known for either. He's more known for just being fantasy, like dark fantasy.
Yeah, and I think he's better at the horror than he is at the science fiction, in my opinion.
I agree.
I mean, he did a little bit of... Burton is really good with, I want to say, fairy tale horror, but it's not fairy tale, but it is sort of. Edward Scissorhands is a fairy tale.
But it's what I would consider dark fantasy or a dark fairy tale. And to me, Guillermo del Toro is very similar. They're hard to categorize. Yes.
Sleepy Hollow's the same way. To that extent, his Batman is that way. It's a very gothic approach to Batman.
It's an aesthetic he has that Del Toro has as well. They have you see a Del Toro film, it's a Del Toro film. You see a Burton film, it's a Burton film. Just from the visuals. This movie is a little out of context.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Well, I think so, just because this movie is not dark in palette. This is a very bright approach to it, similar to how he did the fantasy elements of Edward Scissorhands. So that was one of my keys to it, is the aesthetic is like if the same production company did Edward Scissorhands, or the same reality of Edward Scissorhands done as a sci-fi movie. So lots of bright color, lots of extremely bright lighting. Even when they're in the war room, it's still very brightly lit and everything. So I thought that was an interesting aesthetic choice for him. But I didn't do a lot of research into the production of this, other than it was very studio mandated. So he had a lot of support from the studio. He was still riding high from Scissorhands and everything. And
the only thing I have is that this was based on a series of trading cards from the 60s. And correct. I don't remember these trading cards because they came out in like 62 before I was born. But had I been a teenager or younger when these cards came out, I would have had them.
Oh, yeah.
Because those cards are cool.
They were Topps trading cards, and they're very, very classic
graphic.
50s.
Yeah. and graphic. And the aliens really did look like that, just giant brains inside glass bulbs.
Round glass bulbs. Yes. Were there any scenes then that stood out to you that you that's one I would recommend from this movie? Other than don't run away, we're your friends.
But do not run, we are your friends. Well, you've already mentioned one, the scene where they basically obliterate anyone they come in contact with, but when they for some reason decide to take Sarah Jessica Parker and Pierce Brosnan and experiment on them.
Yes.
And I love that basically Sarah Jessica Parker with a Chihuahua body is like having almost a love scene with the head of Pierce Brosnan, the decapitated head.
Yes.
So that scene stands out to me. I love when Glenn Close is doing this like Betty Ford-ish type. And she's not in the movie very much at all, but she's the first lady. And when all this chaos is happening around her, and she just looks up and goes, "The Nancy Reagan chandelier."
Yeah.
Like, that's your concern. I mean, I guess most of the elements that stand out to me are comedic or violent too.
Yeah. The attacks are all very, very violent. Michael J. Fox and that whole news anchor attack when they first land in the desert. The attack on the White House, of course, all of that.
I love the scene with the flying saucers going around it's very Earth versus the flying saucers. I think that's a key, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that what they look like? Okay.
Yep.
And they're like trying to knock over the Washington Monument, and they're bouncing it around. But when they're flying around the Capitol is when they're flying around the White House, I think it is. It's either the White House or the Capitol. Just reminds me of the 50s sci-fi movies.
Well, remember in Earth versus the Flying Saucer, they actually crash into the Capitol. That's one of the shots from that.
Right. That's why I think I'm mixing the two up. I think it's the Capitol in that movie and maybe the White House in this movie. But when they land and come out, well, I'm getting into keys. I need to just stop that. We were talking scenes, and the Tom Jones stuff. I never thought Tom Jones was going to be. I thought he was going to have a cameo in this movie. I forgot that he's actually got a part. Really?
Oh yeah,
and he's pretty damn good in it.
Yeah, he flies the plane, the rescue plane, and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I do think that the movie really loses it the last tenth of it, the last 10 or 15 minutes, when they're just doing the whole montage of we're going to re-etch the Mount Rushmore. We're going to go bowling on Easter Island. We're going, just Godzilla comes marching through at one point. I mean, it just really loses it near the end.
Yeah, it was almost like, his background, isn't Tim Burton's background as an animator?
Oh, yeah.
It was like he goes full-fledged Joe Dante in that moment.
Agreed. Oh, that's a great key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
And I have more. I enjoy this movie more than I do some of Joe Dante's movies. And Joe Dante goes way cartoon in a lot of his movies. So I can forgive this movie for the 5 minutes of what you're talking about, because the rest of is pretty funny to me.
I actually have a Joe Dante key, so we'll get to that when we get to it.
Okay.
But yeah, that whole ending with, Wednesday Addams, with Natalie Portman doing her best, Wednesday Addams being the president now, I guess.
I know. I guess she is, because everybody else is dead, including Congress. So the daughter becomes president.
And she's giving that speech, but the national anthem is played by a mariachi band. And I was going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's very strange. Very strange.
But no other real. I did like anything that any scene Rod Steiger was in, playing that that essentially that Dr. Strangelove character.
General Schwarzkopf. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's great in this. I don't know what Tim Burton, as far as back to production, it's like, what did he do to get this cast? Because, I mean, they had to waive salaries. This movie would have been astronomically expensive had they not. Agreed.
I mean, they had to work something out with these people.
I read where Jack Nicholson agreed to do the film because of Tim Burton, their relationship, and he liked him. But I mean, why the fuck was Glenn Close in this movie?
Yeah, for her two scenes. Yeah.
So, and everybody, every face in this movie just about is a famous person.
Well, even, this is Jack Black's, I think one of his first movies.
Right.
It's the stupid son.
But I mean, he had already been famous for his music with that Tenacious D or whatever. So even he was a known face. I mean, even the little parts, like Joe Don Baker is in this movie playing the father of the Lucas Haas character, who is also famous. I mean, I can go into cast if you want to go ahead, because I guess that is a large part of this film.
Oh, yeah.
The biggie, of course. Well, first of all, before I go into the cast, the cast includes 3 Oscar winners: Jack Nicholson, Natalie Portman, and Rod Steiger. 6 Oscar nominees: Annette Bening, Glenn Close, Danny DeVito, Sylvia Sidney, Paul Winfield, and Barbara Schroeder. Paul Winfield has a very small part in this movie, but he basically is the general that meets them, and he shakes their hand, and they hear us say, "Oh, it's a bird." They basically fry him instantly.
Oh yeah,
which basically sets the whole premise of this movie, which is just ludicrous nonsense, funny craziness. Jack Nicholson is the president of the United States. As I said, he accepted this role without even reading the script because he liked Tim Burton so much. And Tim Burton let him have fun with it by letting him play 2 characters. President James
and what did you think of that?
I think it's quite obvious that even with that nose, it's Jack Nicholson.
Easily.
I love the bad hair. And when he pulls off the hat, it's even worse. I don't know. He was okay. Do you know who was originally cast before Jack?
No.
His buddy, Warren Beatty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was cast, but he dropped out. Paul Newman was then cast. And
is this as the president character or the casino guy?
The president. Well, I mean, I guess it would be both, because if you're going to let that part be played by both, it would have been both. So Warren Beatty was in it. He dropped out. Paul Newman was in it, but he dropped out because of concerns of violence.
Sure.
And then Michael Keaton was also considered for the role, which would have been interesting considering that, he played Batman and Jack Nicholson was the Joker. Anyway, my guess is that I was going to say maybe Warren Beatty referred Nicholson, but the thing is Nicholson and Burton already had that relationship. So I'm guessing that Burton just said, you know what, I'll get Jack to do it. And so we have it. Glenn Close played the First Lady, but guess what other famous faces were considered for the role?
Who?
Well, number 1, Meryl Streep, which is usually what you hear when you hear Glenn Close. It's either Glenn Close or Meryl Streep.
Or Meryl Streep. There you go.
But also Diane Keaton and Stockard Channing were all considered for that role as well. Okay. Annette Bening is in this movie. I think she's fantastic in this. I don't have
she's great. That's why I wish Warren Beatty had played the casino guy. Let Nicholson be the president. Let Warren Beatty be the casino guy with Annette Bening. That would have been great.
That would have been awesome. And him and Warren Beatty have been friends since, the end of time. So they would have had a lot of fun doing this movie together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have added to the whole what we're talking about, sensationalism of the movie. It would have been great.
Yeah.
So Annette Bening was great. I don't think anybody else was considered for that role. She was fabulous. Pierce Brosnan played Professor Donald Kessler. He is in the photo behind me right now. Another person was considered for this part. Hugh Grant was considered.
Oh, I could easily have seen that. Oh,
I mean, it's like coloring book casting. You know exactly who it's gonna be. It's like, let's just pick from this list of people. Other smaller parts, and there are a lot of small parts played by famous people in this movie. There's a rude gambler that keeps popping up. That's Danny DeVito, who also has worked, of course, with Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The press secretary, Jerry Ross, is played by Martin Short.
One of his better roles, I got to admit.
I have to admit, I like that scene with him and the Martian spy dressed up as the sexy lady.
Lisa Marie. She's awesome.
Yeah, it's Lisa Marie. I don't think I have a picture of her. No, I don't. I don't at all. Okay. Going on. Michael J. Fox is also in this movie playing a reporter. I think is it his wife that's Sarah Jessica Parker or girlfriend?
She's his girlfriend. Yeah.
Johnny Depp turned down the Michael J. Fox role. And this film is kind of notable because it was the last theatrical film that Michael J. Fox filmed until 2014. Because of his Parkinson's disease diagnosis. But Michael J. Fox is great in this. He's very brief. He gets obliterated, and the only thing left is his hand, which Sarah Jessica Parker is holding when she is captured by the Martians. You mentioned Rod Steiger plays General Decker.
Yes.
When asked by Premiere Magazine about the film's failure at the box office, Rod Steiger said that Warner Brothers, seeing the success of Independence Day, another alien invasion film, decided to move their film to December 96 from its original 97 release date. He said it caused great pressure on Tim Burton to deliver a faster cut, and that led to this box office failure.
That makes sense.
And if anybody would know Rod Steiger, I mean, he had been around making movies for a long time. He probably saw this.
And an Easter egg for us is we will actually be doing a Rod Steiger film later on this year.
We will. Yeah. I'm a big Rod Steiger fan. I always have been.
I have too. I've always liked him, and Robert Loggia. Those are two of my, and he's essentially playing the Robert Loggia character from Independence Day.
Angry military man. Yeah.
Angry military, got to attack now, Mr. President.
Yeah, exactly. As mentioned, Tom Jones plays Tom Jones in this movie. He is, of course, singing in Las Vegas when they're there, and he ends up getting recruited into being one of the heroes of the film. Tim Burton visited him backstage after one of his Las Vegas performances to ask him to be in this film. Additionally, Jones's backup singers at the time, I won't mention their names, played the doomed backup singers in this film. So it was Tim and his entourage of singers. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Other small parts, as mentioned, Lucas Haas plays Richie Norris, the son of the grandson of the woman who discovers that Slim Whitman will kill these aliens if played at a high volume.
Yeah, he's essentially the hero of the story.
Correct.
Because we keep cutting back to him and his fight and everything else. I mean, it's between him and the Jim Brown character, I think. They're the two heroes. So.
Well, and the Tom Jones stuff that's going on as well. But yeah, I agree.
Well, that's who he joins is Jim Brown. That's his group.
The Las Vegas crew. Let's just put it
the Las Vegas group. Yeah.
Because Jim Brown's going around in a king cut outfit because he worked at the Luxor. It's pretty funny. But yes, Lucas Haas is the one driving around with the speakers, blasting the music to kill the aliens. As you mentioned, the first daughter of Jack Nicholson and Glenn Close is played by Natalie Portman, who I believe next film was the reintroduction of Star Wars, the Revenge of the Sith film, I believe it was, because it was right shortly after this, if I'm not mistaken. But Natalie Portman was on the map. Jim Brown played Byron Williams, the guy we mentioned from the Luxor. Lisa Marie played the Martian girl. I mentioned her last week she plays Sleepy the mother in Sleepy Hollow in the flashback sequences. And she's got a really cool look, like a vampirella look to her. And she was also Tim Burton's girlfriend at the time. And that's why she's in a lot of his films.
That makes sense, because when I was researching, of course, I researched her and found out she's in a bunch of of Tim Burton films.
Well, you know who else you can do that with?
Why?
You can do it with Helena Bonham Carter too, because he dated her as well. Yeah. Or they were married. Yeah. Okay. I knew they were together. Another famous face that I did not know very well is Sylvia Sidney, who plays the grandmother. She was a big actress in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah. Okay. I recognized her. I mean, she did a lot of television too, as an old, as the grandma.
Right.
Sort of character. Yeah.
Another small part that I did recognize because I really, really like him is Paul Winfield, who played General Casey, the doomed greeter of the Martians.
Yeah.
We know him.
Of Earth.
Yeah, we know him from The Wrath of Khan. He was the one with Chekhov that when they put the bugs in their ears.
By the way, they both die by being phasered essentially, or lasered and burning up.
Oh, that's true.
That's one of my keys.
Yeah. And then Serpent and the Rainbow, which is one of my favorite Wes Craven movies. He's in that too. So he's a great actor.
Paul Winfield's a good, steady actor. Good guy.
Yeah. I would call him a great character actor, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And speaking of great character actors, Pam Grier is in this.
Yeah.
She plays Louise Williams. There's a little subplot of an African-American family that is separated from their father, Jim Brown, and she won't leave her kids.
In
and
DC.
the kids in the end end up finding out about the music too, because they're running around with boom boxes blasting it too or something. But they end up everywhere. They even end up at the White House at one point.
Yeah, they're taking the tour when the White House is attacked. Yeah.
Which is another great scene because the chaos is happening and she's like, you can't go in there. There's a tour.
There's a tour. Yeah.
They're trying to escape Martians, but you can't go in that room. Tim Burton called Pam Grier and asked her to fly to Los Angeles for an audition. And she said, I can't. I have a dog that's terminally ill. He called her back several times and eventually decided that she had already auditioned because her character in the film refused to leave her two sons. And she refused to leave her sick dog.
Well, there you go.
I thought that was very sweet.
That's very sweet.
And we love her. Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown. Yep.
And speaking of Jacks, Jack Black is also in this movie.
And dies in a wonderfully humorous way. So yeah, that works.
Yes. And he is he's the brother of Lucas Haas, right? Isn't he obnoxious?
Correct. Lucas is the black sheep. He's the big hero, joined the army to defend
obnoxious military punk. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he's I don't know. A lot of these characters
dies instantly.
Yeah. And a lot, like you said, a lot of these characters mirror characters in Independence Day. They really do have their doppelgangers from that movie. Other people that are in this movie that I barely even saw, Christina Applegate is in this movie. She played Sharona. Do you remember that?
No,
I don't either. That at all. Okay, very briefly. And then, of course, Joe Don Baker plays the father of Lucas Haas and Jack Black, and the son of Sylvia, what's-her-face, the grandmother. And he is the redneck trailer trash dad. We know him, of course, as Buford Pusser from Walking Tall.
Walking Tall.
I'm telling you, what in the hell did he do to cast this movie?
I have no idea. I would love to have done some more research to find out because it's amazing.
Well, I didn't find any making ofs. I guess I should have looked a little harder because sometimes I research via word, via the internet, like reading. And then sometimes I look for video via television or YouTube. And I neglected to do that. I should have done that this time because there's got to be a making of this movie. There has to be.
I would think, especially with the DVD release and then with the 4K. So yeah. I mean, I did look up the writers, and the writers, a couple of them have worked together before, but they don't have any real big credits.
I think the reason why is you're looking up the writers of the Topps cards. The actual screenplay writer was a guy named Jonathan Gems.
Jonathan Gems. Okay.
And I've got in my notes that he didn't do much at all. And he did not even know that they were based on the trading cards. And they had a story on the back of them all until he had written his screenplay. Because he could have very easily taken elements from the original cards, like incidents that are written on the back of them. Like if you look at the cards, they have little stories on the back of them.
Yeah.
But
even him, I mean, he's got 4 freaking credits.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And Mars Attacks is obviously the biggest one. So not, no name writers, no name product, meaning the Topps cards, really. I mean, as far as were they known in the, in 96?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not by other than just hobbyists or whatever.
I mean, if you ask me my opinion, I would think that Tim Burton knew he had a mediocre script and that he could jazz it up with effects and cast. Is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, but like you said, I don't know how how did he get this cast? I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, what had he done before then? I mean, he'd obviously done Batman and Edward Scissorhands, so he was pretty popular at the time.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think this was a studio baby, where they kind of gave him carte blanche, can you make us another Batman kind of thing? And he would go, yeah, sure, but didn't end up that way.
But I am demented, remember?
Yeah, but I am a little, I'm crazy.
Before we move on, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, as far as awards, this movie won something that really shocked me because I had never heard of it. Have you ever heard of the 2020 awards?
No.
They are awards where they go back and visit a film 20 years after its release and reevaluate it.
Oh, okay.
So it gives films like that didn't make it a second chance, I guess. And it won a 2020 award. So they went back and said, you know what, this movie was better than we thought when it was originally released.
Makes sense to some for some films, yes. I can understand that.
And actually that award was for the score, though. Danny Elfman's score. Sorry, I thought it was the movie, but it was actually the score. It was nominated for sound design and visual effects, all 2020 awards. None of these were current at the time. They were 20 years later. As far as current awards, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror nominated it for sci-fi film and performance by a young actor, Lucas Haas, and director and writer and costumes. But it didn't win any of those. And obviously, I don't know why it would win for writer, but
I took notes on costume because Colleen Atwood did the costumes for this. And she's, extraordinarily famous costumer.
I read that too. Yeah.
And so that's great. And yeah, I could easily understand it being nominated for direction, not for writing in any way.
No, me either.
I don't get that at all. And I can understand it being, Danny Elfman getting, recognition for it because it is one of his better, I think it's one of his better scores just because it's he's playing off traditional 50s sci-fi themes and instrumentation, almost the whole kind of pseudo, forgot the name of the instrument.
It's that thing that's like an antenna.
A theremin. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it still has little motifs and little things that work. It's still in that same kind of key that Elfman tries to put everything in, but that's okay. We'll give it to him.
Well, I mean, that's just, it's like we said, he has an aesthetic just like Burton has an aesthetic, except his is audible and not visual. But yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, well said. Look at you. Very good. Let's see. That's all. Do you have trivia or anything like that from it?
Not really. All I have left are keys. I mean, I don't. As far as scenes, do you have any other scenes? I mean, this movie is basically just a bunch of scenes. So I mean, it's kind of hard.
It's just a bunch of scenes thrown together. Oh, I did have another one in my notes. I did like the fact that the spaceship flies through the Warner Brothers title at the beginning.
I thought
that was kind of cool. Yeah, and that's the only time I remember ever seeing that happen. I remember one like Cat Ballou has the Columbia lady and she suddenly pulls off her gown and she's got guns and she's shooting. I remember that kind of animation. And of course, Spielberg always did the Paramount Indiana Jones Mirror the Mountain kind of shot to open the movie.
Well, and Universal always had the airplane flying around. In the really old Universal movies, it was an airplane flying around the world.
Right, but I can't remember another, damage the logo kind of thing like those. Like, I don't think Universal ever did. Universal always had the typical, it was either the plane flying around or then the logo coming around the world.
Right. In latter years, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there probably is one. I just can't think of it right now.
Yeah. If you guys out there listening know of another key like that, let us know of what it came from.
The altering of logos.
The opening logo. Of course, I've got the ones we just mentioned. So keys wise, I've got Earth versus the Flying Saucer. Not just the fact that, is that typical shot that Harryhausen did of the flying saucer hitting the Capitol. The shape of these flying saucers is very similar to Earth versus the Flying Saucer, but also the same way when they meet the first delegation, they basically start firing on them without a word. They just start shooting. And there's no discussion of peace or anything else. It's war from the very beginning. Which is also another one that we mentioned, Independence Day. They slowly approach. We don't get any contact from them. They attack first. And we get a lot of the caricature characters in it, from the fighter pilot to the rednecks to the people who want to embrace it and say, let's just be friends, and then get blasted. Don't run. We're your friends,
Independence Day came out the same year. And I was I didn't want to deviate too far away, but I was trying to figure out which one actually came out first. I'm assuming this came out first because Steiger said it was rushed.
No, Independence Day came out on July 4th. This came out in December. So they rushed this because Independence Day was so popular.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Because they should have given him more time with it, I guess. I have some weird keys. You mentioned a mad world.
Yeah.
Because of the cast. I felt it felt more to me like an Irwin Allen disaster movie.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
With a sci-fi comedy hybrid. Because of the cast. I mean, all of those Irwin Allen movies had a cast of just famous faces, Paul Newman, Lee Remick, whoever. I mean, just a whole bunch of people. And this one's obviously crammed full. So
Earthquake, Towering Inferno, all those.
Side Adventure, Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Stella, what's her face?
Stevens.
Yeah.
But and it's that same kind of thing. It's just that to me, the Irwin Allen movies do tend to have more of a through line, where this is much more like Mad World, where it's just a collection of scenes with the undercurrent of we've got to get to this place.
Right. I
But
think the
everything
Mad,
is
Mad,
just-
Mad World is the comedy element. It's like
Yeah.
Owen Allen meets Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yeah.
Meets a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sci-fi from the 50s movie. I mean, it's just a big sandwich. It's like a hero sandwich with a bunch of stuff that doesn't go together on it.
Right. You get a little flavor of pickle here, and oh no, there's the
Yeah.
pastrami.
It's like,
Yeah,
this shouldn't taste good, but it does.
it does. Yeah.
It's very strange. Another one I have, as you probably have, is War of the Worlds.
Oh, I was just about to go there. Yep.
Well, I mean, it War of the Worlds is the opposite, but the same. It's like they come to Earth and they basically just start annihilating us, and it is very scary. This one's they come to Earth and they're annihilating us, and it is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And they're Martians.
and they're Martians, yes.
And they're defeated by something unknown to them, kind of thing that we
Right.
have. So, like I said, in War of the Worlds, it's the disease. It's a microbe that kills them. In this, it's it's Slim Whitman.
Slim Whitman. I had to look up that song. I was like, who is singing this?
Well, I had heard the song before because they also use a similar song. I don't think it's this one, but it is by Slim Whitman, as that beginning the title music for Raising Arizona. That
It's like a cowboy yodel.
cowboy yodel. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's the American version of a European type of singing. I was going to look up that song because I did look it up while I was watching the film, but I did not write it down. I believe it was called like Indian Love Song, but they changed it because I guess Indian is now not considered politically correct, and now it's called the Something Else Song.
Okay.
But if you folks want to look that up, fine. It's not that important.
Indigenous song.
Whatever. It is a Slim Whitman song. You can listen to it on YouTube. Just type in Slim Whitman Mars Attack song and it will come up.
But if you have any Martian in you at all, your head may explode. So be careful.
Your head might explode and lots of green slime go flying everywhere inside your glass helmet.
Inside your helmet. Yeah. I have Dr. Strangelove. I mentioned it earlier, but specifically just because of the war room, the round, everybody's sitting around the thing in the center, and the alien comes into it, just like Dr. Strangelove did in the movie. Again, that's a much more realistic, darker comedy than this, but similar.
And that's Kubert too.
And one of my last ones, you actually mentioned Joe Dante, and one of my last ones is Gremlins. This has a really Gremlins feel to it. You know, there's a build-up. We meet a variety of characters kind of thing. And then once it hits the fan, they're killing everything and doing, it's every man for himself kind of thing, feel to it, with a lot of kind of, I think Gremlins is scarier, but not played for comedy like this one is, but a lot of weird kind of twisted gags,
but it's also very cartoonish.
Correct.
Gremlins
Correct. That's a good, I think that's a good key, is cartoons in general. Yeah. Even down to biting I'm kissing the woman and she, I bite her cheek off or whatever.
And this is a Warner Brothers movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like a Warner Brothers cartoon. They're very violent.
Very violent cartoon. Yeah.
And so they're known for doing this. That's really a good key now that I think about it. Warner Brothers, because those Bugs Bunny cartoons are extremely violent.
Oh, yeah. Well, so were Tom and Jerry for that matter. But that's
right. That's Hanna-Barbera. I always relate Warner Brothers as being superior, though. Especially the Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, all that stuff is very, very violent at times. Roadrunner is very violent. I have several others that are off in nowhere land. Surprise shootings. Like people like Paul Winfield getting shot when he greets them at the beginning. And like all of a sudden, like them coming into the Senate chamber or whatever. And all of a sudden people just getting shot for no reason. I thought of a couple movies where that happens. One is Assault on Precinct 13. When that guy shoots that little girl, it is so out of the blue.
I wanted Vanilla Twist.
I wanted Vanilla Twist. Shoots her in the chest. And then also in 10 Cloverfield Lane, when John Goodman shoots that guy and you are not expecting it. It just
not at all
so fast. And that happens a lot in this movie, except you start to expect it because it happens so much.
Agreed. I think that's an interesting trope that he revisits a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I'm tired of filming you in this movie. Boom, you're dead.
You're done. Don't run. We mean you no harm.
A lot of the War of the World, Irwin Allen. So, okay, I've got some, I guess, that were from IMDb. We mentioned Earth versus the Flying Saucer because of the saucer design, and some of the actual shots look like they're from that movie. Apparently, the mothership, I didn't see this, has a container holding the fat clown from Batman Returns.
Oh, I didn't see that as a key, as an Easter egg. No, I didn't.
I mean, it's more of an Easter egg than a key, I guess you'd say. They made up the Martian girl. They wanted her to look like a hybrid of Marilyn Monroe and the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think they did that very well.
Well, and their heads are so big, she had to have that huge, like, drag queen wig to cover up her brain. And I love when her cheek gets torn and you see the teeth in there.
The way and she's chewing gum the whole time too.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But the way they did that, her hovering almost when she walked, but still doing that really weird move with her arms, kind of, I loved that. I thought that was really cool.
I loved the whole scene with her and Martin Short. It just cracks me up. And the reason she's chewing that gum is it's got something in it so that she can breathe without a helmet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's her.
Very funny scene.
Her respirator kind of thing.
And then lastly, I'm surprised you didn't mention, did you have another key? I'm sorry if I'm stepping on you.
I had a kind of a pseudo production key, but I found in my notes here that I did have that. Burton wanted to do all of them in stop animation as an homage to Harryhausen.
I saw that.
But it was too expensive. So they went with CGI instead. But he wanted that feel of stop animation, and later on ended up doing that, of course, with Nightmare Before Christmas and Corpse Bride and everything else. So
right. And I also read somewhere, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they tried to fake the CGI to look stilted like that animation, but that it looked so bad they cleaned it up. They just decided not to do it or something. And I'm glad they did clean it up, because I like the fact that these Martians look crazy and real and just bizarre.
Yeah, the design is great. And very much like, again, it's the key is not to any particular movie, but the genre of that 50s paranoia of aliens and how aliens will take over and kill and destroy and all that.
But yet they look like
big
skulls.
Brains. Yeah,
skulls with big brains. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that actually is a key we left out, I guess, probably. But the Topps cards, I mean, they look exactly like those cards if you look them up.
Yeah, that's where the design comes from, which is great.
So, I mean, that's the biggest key there is to this movie is those cards that.
Because that was the inspiration for the movie.
Right. And I had never heard of them. I have one more small one that I'm surprised you didn't mention, but when they're coming down the little ramp, it's very Day the Earth Stood Still.
Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
Classic and sci-fi. They do that. They repeat that twice. They do it in the war room as well, when the ambassador's coming down into the war room kind of thing. It's that same kind of feel.
Isn't it? Is it the war room? I was thinking it was Congress.
Well, no, it's both.
Okay.
Actually, they repeat it 3 times. So they do it in the initial landing when the emissary comes down and the guys are behind, soldiers are behind him. They do it when he comes into Congress before he goes around to speak, and then they shoot everybody. And then they do it when the war room, when he comes down to talk to the president. So, yeah. And my last one, again, is the one I mentioned before, which is Star Trek Wrath of Khan, just because Winfield dies the same way. He shoots himself in Wrath of Khan. But
I need to put that, though.
He kind of turns into a skeleton and flames out, kind of thing.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. I needed to put that in there for that reason alone. But anyway, I know it's not a great movie, but to me, it's a very fun movie.
Yeah.
And I think it was an excellent, despite the fact that we were trying to do a Burton duo for Halloween and right before Thanksgiving, I think it was a great choice for us to go out on for a break for Thanksgiving because it was really fun. I totally enjoyed watching this movie.
I did too. And I'll share a personal story. My daughter-in-law actually finds this movie terrifying. She doesn't find it funny at all. I can't even go and go in front of her because she goes no and gets shudders.
It's the Sarah Jessica on the dog, isn't it?
Well, I think it's the aliens mostly. They scare her. And I thought, well, good. Then that kind of achieved it because they needed to be kind of scary,
They are scary. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see somebody try to remake this with that design, but do it as a legit invasion movie, because those big brains and big eyes and skull, that'd be scary. Yeah.
I'm looking at the poster behind me right now. I didn't realize it has Sarah Jessica Parker as that dog on it.
Oh yeah, she's actually scratching fleas on the freaking cover of the poster. Yeah. So,
anyway, I would say it's safe to assume that this movie, by the way, is not on the 1001 movies you must see before you die, but I would definitely recommend it as a fun holiday movie.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, watch it. Yeah.
And we would like to thank Tim Funk for recommending this as our first listener request or viewer request episode.
And let us know what you think, Tim. So write to us, and all of you guys out there listening, let us know what you think too. We like it.
And pick a movie.
Yeah. Pick a movie.
Yeah. And that's going to do it for a couple of weeks. We're going to take a couple of weeks off Thanksgiving. Yep. Then we're going to come back with our usual special 3-week themed Christmas episodes. And what else was I going to say? God, I have so much to say. I think I mentioned before that if you want to know what movies we're doing, you can find out on a Thursday. If you want to, on our YouTube channel or on Facebook, in our Facebook group. If you really want to know well in advance, you can support us on Patreon. It's just a small donation a month, and we will send you a list of the movies in advance for the entire season, all 40 of them, including double features, listener request episodes, and etc. Other special shenanigans we have going on. And I guess until then, I'll be seeing you, David. Happy Turkey Day.
Happy Turkey Day to you and to everybody out there listening, and we'll see you next month.
All righty.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.